Welcome back to the First Responder Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Conrad Weaver. This is the first of a two-part series where we talk about first responder health. So Samantha Sonnett spent 20 years with the NYPD, first as a patrol officer and a focus on domestic violence. In the second half of her career, she served with the COBRA unit, where she trained first responders in chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear preparedness. In this episode, we talk about the disturbing health trends among first responders, including reduced life expectancy. And we know that first responders in general live 20 years less than the average. And Samantha breaks down why eating right, taking care of your cells, and focusing on overall wellness should be a no-brainer for anyone wearing the badge. So whether you're a first responder, supporting someone who is, or you lead an agency, this is an important conversation, so stay tuned. Hey there, whether you're brand new to the show or you've been with us for a while, would really appreciate it if you took a moment to leave a 5-star rating and a quick review. It's one of the best ways you can help us grow and reach even more first responders with the stories, insights, and resources that we share here. So wherever you're tuning in, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watching on YouTube, let us know what you think, and don't forget to share it with your crew. Thanks so much for your support. And now here's part one of my conversation with Samantha Sonnett. Well, Samantha, welcome. I'll have to say welcome back to the First Responder Wellness Podcast. We had you on a while back, but in a brief show. So I'm glad to have you back. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really happy to be here. I love your podcast and I love the work that you've done. And I'm really appreciative of all the things that you've brought to light over the last couple of years, from the documentary to the podcast. And it's just it's an honor to be here with you.
Well, thank you. You have retired from law enforcement. So tell us just briefly about your career in law enforcement.
Yeah, I can actually kind of talk about it now because I am retired, okay. which is nice. I retired from the NYPD in July after a little over 20 years of service. And a brief synopsis is the first 10 years, I did mostly patrol. I also did investigations for domestic violence, which was a little crazy. We were really, really busy. Yeah. I mean, God, for a while, I was the only one in the domestic violence unit.
In a city of what 10 million?
I mean, I would have 4,000 cases in a year, 4,000 reports that need to be followed up on.
That's not even, you're not even able to do that physically.
No,
that's not even
feasible. And you find yourself prioritizing victims in piles you just never want to create. And that was incredibly stressful. And I never wanted to take days off because I knew there was no one else to pick up my caseload because I was a unit of one for a while there. And after about 10 years of that, just the street and investigations, I just started to feel burnt out. And I decided to make a change. So I went into counterterrorism because my background was kind of in counterterrorism. My master's work was in that field. So I went there, and then I spent the next 10 years in our COBRA unit, which is our chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear preparedness unit. So I would just train first responders on how to mitigate those situations.
Wow.
Which I really loved. And it was a good time.
What did you like about the job as a police officer?
For me, I actually really loved the first 5 or 6 years. There was a lot of things about it that I loved. I was really close with my squad. My squad really became like family. I still talk to them all the time. I loved riding with my partner. We had just this really tight-knit group. I, for the most part, had good bosses, and we had fun. It was crazy. It was chaotic. It was just a wild ride, and we were in it together, though. And I had a really good experience with the brotherhood side of law enforcement in those first 10 years. There were some blips along the way, of course. But, overall, I'd say that my patrol years were probably the most fun. And I really liked that. And then it was very different for the second half. It was a little bit more of a corporate feel. I didn't have that strong brotherhood thing going on in this second half, but I got to learn a lot. I got to go do some really cool things, travel, go to conferences. I had access to a ton of training, a ton. And so it was just constantly learning things. And I really liked teaching. So it was good. I had a good ride.
So you talked about what you liked, and what did you not like about the job of being law enforcement?
What I did not like about it, I didn't like the way that we were treated, in the sense that, you know, people were just definitely overworked. I didn't like that there was a lot of pressure when I was on patrol to write summonses, which is and stop, question, and frisk. And that's really part of the reason that the whole stop, question, and frisk controversy came to light, because with the introduction of something like CompStat, which helped us keep crime statistics, with that came a tremendous amount of pressure on the higher ups to say, hey, we need to stop more people. We need more summonses in this area. And they would then tell us, if you don't give me this number of summonses, or you don't stop this many people by the end of your shift, like, you're going to be taken out of your car. We're going to switch you to nights. We're going to take you from your partner. You're not going to get days off. And
so you had like a quota to reach?
Yes.
Wow.
Very much so. And like, if you wanted to leave early, say you had, I don't know, my brother's birthday party, and they were like, well, if you write 2 summonses between this time and this time, then we'll let you go.
So that is really not what law enforcement is really about, right?
No, it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
It's like, if you see something going on, then you intervene.
Right.
And you should have that freedom to decide when you're going to do that. And that started to change. And it became this very threatening atmosphere, where it was like a lot of competition and no one wanted to be on the radar. And this isn't just like the sergeant's fault or the lieutenant's fault or even the commanding officer's fault. This came from way up, right?
Like from the commissioner's office,
about, like, mayor, the commissioner. And they're like, all right, our crime stats are bad. We need to get them down. So what is your precinct? What are you guys doing about it? And those numbers were a way to show that you were doing something about it.
So did it help?
No. It created a major breakdown. It's like what happened. It became like the thing that started to break down communities with law enforcement, because you started feeling like you had to stop people, even though you normally wouldn't have stopped them. And people started to feel harassed. But you're a young cop. Most people on patrol are typically on the younger side. You're getting all these threats. You're being told you have to do these certain things. So you're like, well, I better do it, because I don't want a bad review. Bad review, you'll never go into any kind of unit. You'll be trapped on patrol your whole life. So a bad review would be a terrible thing for a young cop. So your numbers had to be good. And that's all it really was. You had to fill out this thing at the end of the month and say how many people you stopped, how many summonses you gave for what violations, and it had to be the things that you wrote had to be like coincide with whatever problem was in that area at the time. So
it wasn't so much about community policing and helping. It was about just kind of reaching the quota that the higher ups wanted. And making them look good, making the police department, quote unquote, look good, which actually made it look bad.
Yeah. I mean, I get the theory behind it. Like, look, we're having a lot of, say, robberies in this area. So let's fill it with cops and let's have them be really active in that area, and that will stop the robberies in theory. But in practice, if I'm standing on a street corner that's known for robberies and they want me to stop 3 people in the next 3 hours, and I don't see anyone doing anything wrong, I got to make it up. I got to stop someone who's doing nothing just to make my number. So that's where it started to go wrong.
Yeah. And that's when you get pushback from the community.
Yeah. Like, let me stand on the street corner. That's fine. Presence is good. Visibility is good. Don't make me stop the random people, though. Right. And then that's what we've learned from Stop, Question, and Frisk and all the upheaval from the communities. is, all right, now we'll just increase visibility, but now they don't have those requirements anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that that changed. I'm glad that that went away.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, that was another reason I wanted to get off of patrol.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as one of the biggest problems within law enforcement in general?
Well, I think a lot of things are like changing when it comes to law enforcement too. So like my answer would definitely be different like 20 years ago. But right now I'm seeing this like, I guess, a backlash starting from Stop, Question, and Frisk, where they're looking at the way that of policing as a whole. And it's like, what can we change about policing to make it less of a brotherhood, to make it more of a corporate situation, to professionalize it in a way? And I'm not a huge fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think it's really important to have strong bonds with the people you work with, because this isn't a corporate job. This isn't your 9 to 5 where you're sitting at a cubicle and you can just kind of leave work behind you and go home. There's a positive to a brotherhood mentality where we're there for each other, because you do have to put your life in another person's hands, and you have to trust them. So you need to build that trust. On the flip side, I understand where the brotherhood mentality is scrutinized, because they think it leads to things like, say, the blue wall of silence, where we're less likely to report each other for something negative or cover up for each other because we're friends, we're family. We don't want to do that to one another. In my personal experience, I didn't see that too often. In all honesty, I saw cops kind of stepping in and correcting each other when we were out of line, being like, because a lot of emotion happens when you're out there and you're these intense situations, and you have to learn to control that. And as you're learning, you make mistakes. So it was nice to have another cop pull you back and be like, breathe, So I don't know. I like the idea of the brotherhood. I don't like the toxic side of it. I didn't see a lot of the toxic side of it. I know other officers have. But, we also are seeing, I do see that we're starting to pay attention to mental health, which is really important. I don't see a tremendous amount of meaningful change within law enforcement about that. I just see more of an awareness level increasing, and a few departments trying to make meaningful change when it comes to that. We have a long way to go. We still have a tremendous amount of suicide, as we can even see from this year alone.
Right.
I don't like that, cops are still working so many hours, and there's like this push for overtime just to make a solid living. Are you starting to see some change with that, an increase in salaries, because a lot of people disappeared, right? They don't want to be cops. They retired early. We have less people wanting to join the police force. I don't love that the scrutiny is so intense that you have a bunch of people who know nothing about policing making judgments based on limited body cam footage or just a portion of a story, where, as an officer, you can be scrutinized, your life can be destroyed on a false narrative. Like, your home, people could be outside your home, like your personal information is made public. I don't love those things.
Right.
It's not a great time to be in law enforcement for the most part.
What do you think about here locally? It's a couple of years ago now. The city here put together a citizens advisory group to advise the police department.
Yeah.
Some of the people on the advisory group were known felons that had records.
Yeah, this is like I don't love this. That's
kind of the dumbest thing ever in my mind.
Yeah. This has been happening.
How do you feel about that?
City. I mean, New York City, we have the CCRB as a community review board, where they would take complaints and then they would make decisions on whether or not the cop acted appropriately. And no one there has any idea about police training. A lot of them, unfortunately, are anti-law enforcement. I hate that. I don't think that should be a thing. I do think that we need to have a good understanding of how the community sees us and how they feel affected by us. And that should then be discussed by professionals in policing on how we can adjust that, because we are here for the public, right?
Mhm.
We're here for them, but they should not be dictating how we do our job.
Mhm.
So I'm not loving the community input when it comes to actual policing tactics and methods. That I don't like.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
I know in your journey, you've had a number of physical problems, and
Mhm.
you've really you're starting to focus more on how health is affected within the first responder community and specifically law enforcement. What do you see are the trends there, and what are some of the biggest issues related to that?
Yeah. I mean, this I think has actually been greatly overlooked. I mean, mental health is starting to get the attention it deserves, thanks to people like you, right? Um, but what I'm starting to realize is that our physical health is not getting a lot of attention. And it really needs to, because one, physical health is mental health, and mental health is
Mhm.
physical health. These
Yep.
are two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
And our physical health is on it's definitely been threatened for a long time. And when I started to dive into some of the statistics for first responders as a whole, but especially law enforcement, I found like some horrific data. And one of the scariest things I found was that our lifespan falls about 20 years shy of the national average.
I've heard that before, and that's crazy.
That's a wild
I mean,
statistic.
why would anybody want to go into law enforcement?
They they hide these things, I think. Like, I didn't know. I had no idea until I went
Yeah.
digging.
It's not
And there's
something
not
they
a lot.
put on the application form. Did you know?
Did you know you get to retire after
Right.
20, now 25 years, but
Yeah.
you'll probably be dead by 57.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I don't know if you heard the podcast I think last week with Tim Egerbrotten. He's a retired a police chief out of Minnesota. He said, I retired at 50 because I knew I'd be dead by 55 if I stayed in. It's like,
or
what?
even if you retired.
Right. It's
Like,
like,
it's
well, how
crazy.
sad is that?
It is sad. And I feel like the retired community, and I haven't even been in it that long, right? I only retired in July. But the retired community, I'm learning, it feels a bit forgotten.
Hmm.
And a lot of them are sick.
Hmm.
I mean, we're talking, our number one killer is heart disease,
Hmm.
especially law enforcement. As a nation, it's our number one killer.
Right.
But the statistics for law enforcement are even worse, which
Yeah.
it's already bad. So then you add, it's terrible.
Wow.
We lead the nation in heart disease. We lead the nation in metabolic disorders, obesity, diabetes.
A nation that has, some of the best medical facilities and smart brains behind, medicine.
Yes, we spend more on healthcare than any other nation by far.
Yeah.
Right. But our stats as a nation are pretty terrible, which was really highlighted, I think, during COVID, because our comorbidities were so prevalent that it hurt us as a nation, and especially as a first responder. A lot of the guys I know that managed to survive 9/11 did not survive COVID because they were already so compromised, and which was really sad. Right. I see the cancer rates just going crazy, almost, especially amongst fire. They're now listing firefighting as one of the most at risk for cancer in the country. And
yeah, I know that the IAFF has been really focused on that recently and doing a lot of things about that.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to like cleaning the gear, cleaning the turnout units and things like that. So
yeah, some of these things can be addressed through cultural change, like what you just mentioned. But it's also the way the world has changed. Like, fires have become a lot more toxic because of a lot of the synthetics that we're using. Plus, they realized that the foam that they were using was very carcinogenic. They're surrounded by carcinogens, maybe not wearing the PPE the way they were supposed to. Like, I work with a lot of retired fire chiefs who it was the norm to be like, you don't put your mask on. Like, you're a pansy if you put your mask on. Right. Like,
so tough guys don't wear a mask, right?
Guys don't wear masks. Yeah, exactly. So, that mentality, that could save lives, changing that mentality. and being aware of the fact that things like fires are so much more dangerous than they used to be because of these synthetics.
Well, if you think about it, our houses, for one thing, are pretty much glued together.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah,
glue all
they
around me. The floors, everything has glue in it, and so
Mhm.
when that burns, and just being in this, I had a question one time of, okay, they put a lot of this plastic siding on houses. Now we're surrounded in plastic. Is
Oh,
that even
yeah.
good for us?
No.
I don't
We're
know.
surrounded by it. We're surrounded by toxins. They're everywhere.
Right.
I mean, first responders have a alarming cancer rate, but the country also does.
Yeah.
And it seems to be happening with younger and younger people.
Yeah.
I mean, every single one of us, me, you, everyone listening to this show, you know someone with cancer, lost someone to cancer,
Yep.
or know someone that's battling it right now. I could think of several people that are battling it right now.
Do you think the first responder
Everywhere.
community, the numbers are even higher because of the added stressors of the job?
Yes, 100%. It's one of the reasons that as a whole, we're sick and dying. I mean, almost every retired person I know is sick with something significant or dies young. I get so many notifications that, oh, this person died. They were in their 50s. They were in their early 60s. It's like, it's all the time. I get a new notification from my retired group or something. It's like there's so many funerals. And it made me really like take a minute and be like, holy, I want to look into this. We got to figure this out, because this isn't right. Like you give your life to this, and then you don't even get to enjoy your pension because your life gets robbed. So we have to start paying attention, and it's a complicated problem. Right.
So what should that rookie be thinking about?
Well, when you're a rookie, right? Let's say you're 21 years old and you're just ready. Like you want to hit the ground running, and you got tons of energy. You think you're invincible. Just like I was. I thought that. Right? And I thought I was healthy. I thought, because I was like thinking, you know what, by the time I retire, however many years, which felt like forever, like way off in the distance when you're 21, 22. I was like, I don't want to look old. Because a lot of the people I knew who were retiring looked 20 years older than they actually were. I'd be like shocked. I'd be like, how old are you? I'm like, oh my God. And I made a pact with myself that when I go to retire, I don't want to look like all beat up. So I'm like, I'm going to take care of myself. So in my mind, that meant I thought I was eating healthy. I thought I had a good foundation because my mother was a bodybuilder. My sister's a bodybuilder. Like nutrition, I thought was ingrained into me, and that I was doing the right things. I thought, oh, it doesn't matter if I go out and drink, as long as when I order my food, I order things like lean proteins and vegetables and stuff like that, or I eat low carb, or I watch my calories, and I go to the gym and I push it really hard. At no point in my mind in 20 years, or up until like recently, did I ever think about the food I was eating and think, is this good for my cell? That's not the norm for people.
Right.
Nobody thinks that. Yeah. Right. They're like, oh, am I going to get fat? How am I going to keep my waistline down? Like the Suzanne Summers era, like the 90s, like low fat is the way to go, and watch your calorie intake and make sure, you live in a low carb lifestyle. And there's some benefits to this.
Sure.
But where we're missing the gap, the disconnect, is we don't associate our food with cellular health. And we need to start, because without healthy cells, we will eventually fall apart. So that's not just a first responder shift.
Sure.
That paradigm needs to shift globally, I'd argue.
But I think, especially for first responders, since they already have a 20-year gap or 20-year deficit, of life, potentially.
Yeah. Yep.
So it becomes even that much more important.
We don't think about it until it affects us. Mm-hmm. I didn't think about it. I didn't ever give this is not something that's talked about. Like nobody said, hey, how are your cells doing? Like nobody, that's just not the way we think of things. Right?
So in the course of a week, how many times did you or your partner or the people that you work with, how many times did you stop at the equivalent of a 7-Eleven or a fast food place to grab something?
All the time. That's how we lived, right?
Yeah.
We would go get coffee and something for breakfast, which, a lot of the time was Dunkin' Donuts. And I'm thinking I'm doing fine. Like I'm just getting a coffee with some cream and I'll put Splenda in it. Not realizing that the cream that they're putting in there isn't real cream. It's basically a laundry list of chemicals. And then the Splenda is a neurotoxin. So I'm like, but who thinks of that? There's no calories.
Yeah. I was at a medical conference one time I was hired to do some video work at this conference. And during one of the breaks, I was out in the lobby of the hotel where they have all the coffee and stuff set up. And these two doctors were talking. I overheard them. And the one doctor was making his coffee and putting his sugar and stuff in it. And I heard the one say to the other, have you ever looked at the chemical composition of Splenda? And the other guy says, no, I haven't. He goes, well, if you would, you'd never put it in your coffee. So that was like, okay, noted.
It's so true. I mean, I'm like big into science, right? I'm a researcher. I'm a CBER nerd. But for some reason, I never made the gap of applying it to food. And now that my brain has made that gap, and I went back to school in my own medical battle, which I'll talk about. I decided to go back to school and I went for functional nutrition. And once I went to that school and I started to learn things from more of a scientific approach to the health of your body, I mean, it just changed my whole outlook on everything. And I realized I had done so much wrong for so long that it's no shock my health gave out. Even though I thought I was doing it right, I so wasn't. And I'm watching so many other people make the same mistakes that I made. And I'm hoping to bring some awareness to it and get like a shift in how people view their health. Because a lot of the time with first responders, especially, it's all about the protein shakes, like the ones who think they're doing it right? They're hitting the gym really hard. They're doing the protein, all the things I did, like trying to have those shakes and trying to eat protein rich diet that's low carb and typically low sugar. Right. But the things I didn't think of were like, am I getting enough micro and macronutrients? Right.
So what is a micro or macronutrient?
Like we're incredibly deficient as a nation in things like magnesium, potassium, calcium. And for me, those things are really important because those are also electrolytes. Those are things that keep you hydrated. They keep your cells nourished, right? And I wasn't getting enough of those. None of us are. And almost the whole country is magnesium deficient or D3 deficient, which is a hormone. But we have these intense deficiencies that really just harm our body. And we don't talk about that. We don't acknowledge that. And we don't test for that. Like lab work isn't really testing your cellular health. All right. So it's like a shift that we're kind of beginning to understand as a nation because we have to, because we're so sick. Like 80% of the country is on at least one prescription medication.
It's crazy.
I mean, 70% are overweight. Like half the country is either diabetic or pre-diabetic.
I can attest to that because I've traveled overseas to Europe and different places, and you can always pick out the Americans.
Yeah. And it's sad.
It is.
It's sad. And we need to change.
Yeah.
Even just from a national security standpoint, we need to change.
Sure.
We really do. I mean, some of this stuff is so alarming that I read because now that I'm like, it's on my radar, I dive into studies and I don't waste my time with anything that's not like a legit like study. Right. So I skim through them every day. one of the things that I'm seeing, and this was studies out of Mount Sinai, when it comes to men's health, is we've had this major decline in male sperm count and a huge drop in testosterone. And that's interesting, right? Because
Why
we
is
need to
that?
pay attention to that. A lot of it has to do with diet and the hormones in our food. So we're seeing this crazy drop in testosterone. And male fertility has dropped about 50%.
Wow.
If it stays on that trajectory in the next 25, 30 years, the study is claiming, and this is out of Mount Sinai, I'm just making this up. I actually have the book behind me. It's saying that if we stay on that trajectory for the next 30 years, that male fertility will drop off so much you will not be able to reproduce without the help of a fertility doctor.
Wow. That's
so
frightening.
There's like it's terrifying. Everyone should be talking about it, but we don't, because it's kind of like, let's not rock the $1 billion, $1 trillion industries. And
do you think, the kind of sidebar here, do you think that is maybe the root of the problem? The
with what?
multi-trillion-dollar industries that's funded, that all this stuff, all the medical stuff funds?
Stuff? Well, there's a lot of problems that we have with our healthcare system. Like, as a woman, I can tell you that it was 1993, that's not that long ago, that the FDA finally declared that women should be involved in medical research and clinical trials. Before 93, women were not included.
That's shocking to me.
I know. It's shocking to me as a woman. It's insane. We have such a long way to go, especially with women's health. And of course, big pharma is huge. Yeah. Obviously, it's a massive industry.
Yeah.
And when you have 80% of Americans who are on at least one prescription med, that's a problem. Yeah. But the health and wellness industry isn't much better. It's worth trillions of dollars. Even when people are like, you know what, I'm going to do better. They don't know how to do better because there's so much conflicting. They're like, do this diet and this fad diet and take this supplement and all this stuff is
drink
not regulated.
This green drink and this mushroom thing. And
yeah, it's impossible to navigate. It really is. Try this CBD. You got a bad knee, like try that. It's like, it can be so overwhelming that you just don't even know how to live a healthy lifestyle. And I don't blame people for not knowing, because there's so much out there. How do you weed through it? And people just give up. Right. They're like, you know what? I have no idea where to begin. I don't know what to believe. And I'm just going to do the best I can, or just completely give up and do whatever. And, there was a lot of cops that ate terrible, eating fast food, smoking cigarettes, drinking their beer. And they would say things like, oh, well, you know what? My buddy's a marathon runner, but he had a heart attack. So what difference does it make? Yeah. I'm just going to live my life and be happy. I just want to be happy. And I'm like, oh my God. Well, first of all, just because the marathon runner, I know some marathon runners that are not healthy. Right? They look healthy. They're six-packed. They look really healthy. But I watch them eat. They're not healthy. They're shoving burgers down their throat. They're, eating a bunch of French fries or drinking milkshakes because they're like, I'll just run it off. You might run off the calories, but it doesn't mean that it didn't impact your cell. It doesn't mean
that reminds me of my bike ride in 23, because John and I, and you met John back last December.
Yeah.
We ate anything we wanted. Because we knew the next day we'd be riding 70 miles on a bicycle.
Yes.
And we did that. I mean, every day it was another milkshake, of course.
Yeah, why not?
We're going to, I lost weight. I lost 10 pounds at the end of the whole thing, eating anything and as much as I wanted.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But I never thought about how this milkshake and all the other stuff affects me on the cellular level.
Yep. And because nobody does think of that until, I didn't think of it until I went to school and we talked about it. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't I? Of course, if I put something toxic into my body that my body now has to deal with and filter, and my cells are trying to pull it to fuel it, it still is damaging. because we're taught to only think about our waistline and calorie burning. And how do we look
or
in
our cholesterol level?
Or cholesterol.
Yeah.
Or how do I look in a bikini? Right? Like we don't think about our body. We spend our whole time, our whole life in this body, but we rarely think about it in a nurturing way. We just want to push it. We get frustrated when it falls behind. We get angry at it when it gets injured or sick and doesn't repair itself quick enough. And we push it to these extremes all the time and then get angry when it fails without ever really appreciating it.
And the other part of the human experience is we live in, especially in today's world, we live in such a pleasure-driven world. What feels good, what tastes good, right?
Yeah.
That's what
and
we
it's
focus
not
on.
and the food is designed to make you addicted to it. It's, they think of like, and they brag about it, right? Like Lay's, can't eat just one. Isn't that like a,
right. It is. Yeah. You can't
addicting.
chop,
the same people
crunch
that,
just one. Yeah.
They eat the bag. It's going to be so good. You'll eat the bag. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Isn't that a wonderful message? It's the same people that used to own the cigarette industry.
Right. Yep.
It really is. They just moved over into the food industry and they're trying to fill your food with things to make you addicted to it. And it works. It's huge. People are so addicted to food. And it's one of the worst addictions you can have because you need food. You can't just give it up.
Right.
You can't cut it cold turkey and walk off, right? Like you can with other drugs.
And that lasts a month and then you're shriveled up to nothing.
You got to keep eating.
Right.
And it's like we've become so addicted and your body craves it. And, the way I view the body is so different now, and how I treat myself and the things I put into my body, everything's with purpose and with intention now.
So why, what happened in your life and your experience with your health that caused you to focus on this? Well, that's where we'll hit pause for now, but be sure to come back next week for part 2 of this powerful conversation with Samantha Sonnett. She takes us deep into her personal health journey. What started as an unexpected, unbearable pain turned into a life-threatening diagnosis in years of searching for answers. And so we talk a lot about first responder health and what are some things that first responders can do to live longer. So be sure to come back and listen to next week's episode as well. And be sure you're subscribed to the First Responder Wellness Podcast, and we'll see you next time. And one more thing, remember that you are not alone. And if you need someone to talk to and don't know where you can turn, you can dial 988 for help. Until next time, be well, take care of yourself and those around you, and go out and do something great in the world.